How's everybody doing today? I really want to talk about something that I've thought about a lot in the last few months, especially, but which I haven't really had the right examples or words to feel like I was doing it justice making a video until now. And in the description for this video, you will find at least two videos. I think I can just use two to clearly outline what it is that I'm trying to say here. Um, that will provide you with the context that I'm using here in this video, and which kind of led me to these examples that I'm going to be using, and to try and be able to clearly define this message that I want to give. I want to compare and contrast to try and make this point a current ongoing example, a bit of YouTube current events that in my mind very, very clearly demonstrates people handling a situation horribly incorrectly. And I want to contrast that with an example of a man who I think took a similar, far, far worse situation and handled it flawlessly. And I want to outline for you the differences and the possibilities and the outcomes that come from these two different ways of thinking. And I especially urge you to watch this clip, this TEDx talk clip that I'm going to link in the description. I really found it to be just incredibly sage advice from a person who very clearly spent a lifetime forming this opinion and creating these examples through his own actions. Real quickly, before I get too further into this, and I don't want to linger on this, just for the benefit of my own YouTube channel and myself, I do want to throw in a message to not forget to like and subscribe and all that. But without further ado, so the first example, the current example that I want to discuss, revolves around a 30-second or so, maybe even less than that, sound bit from the H3H3 podcast involving Boogie2988. And this actually came to my attention, although I'm fairly certain that I watched this particular podcast. I watched pretty much all of them. It was not of note to me at the time, and this only came to my attention through two videos from what appears to be a channel built around the card game Magic the Gathering. I'll get to why that's important in a second. That showed up in my recommended feed. Now, I think that they probably were there due to the nature of these particular videos and not the nature of the channel itself. And one of the videos through which I became aware of this situation will also be linked in the description, and it also contains a clip in the very beginning of the video of the original comment made by Boogie. But in case you don't want to watch that, or you don't want to watch it until the end of this video, I'm going to go ahead and paraphrase it for you here, loosely, but still maintaining the same point. He starts out by saying that he is pro-gay marriage and that he loves gay marriage, but he thinks that it's better to reach that point slowly by changing people's minds through conversation than to do it violently or quickly, which may lead to violence. And his exact terminology is that he doesn't want to do anything more to bring the crazies out because he doesn't want to see any more people harmed or killed for being gay. Now, keep in mind that this is a guy who has done actual legitimate gay rights activism. Apparently, he collected signatures for marriage equality in his state. And he even says in this clip very clearly that he is pro-gay marriage and pro-gay rights. Now, of course, there are some people who fancy themselves gay rights activists who are on Twitter who would disagree with this position and think that that change needs to happen instantly, all the time. And you know what? That's a fine thing to disagree about. It sounds like these two people are generally leaning in the same direction and have pretty similar opinions, and only disagree in some minor technicality or nuance. But that is not the way that these people decided to take this, because unfortunately this is the internet, and this is 2018. Specifically the one person that was focused on in the video that I'm going to link, and the one person who I am going to call out because this person already has some notoriety, is a person by the name of, and sorry, I have to refer to my notes here for this person's title and things, Ali Medwin, and she is the online digital product manager for Magic the Gathering Online, which is a product of a company called Wizards of the Coast. Now, apparently, Wizards of the Coast has had some business relationship with Boogie2988 in the past, and through the actual physical card game Magic the Gathering, which, understand this, I am peripherally aware that it exists, and that is about as much information that I can give you on this card game. I'm 100% certain that it's something that exists. But she blatantly calls out Boogie in her own tweets for being anti-gay marriage, goes on a massive tirade on what apparently, at least according to the person making the original video, seems to be a kind of pseudo business and personal Twitter, kind of a combination of the two, or at least she has, in her description in her Twitter, has leveraged her position at Magic the Gathering to try and receive verification, which I know from personal experience, and especially through some people in my own life, is something that for some reason people care way, way too much about. But she goes on to say things like that, to accuse him of being against this union that she is about to have with the love of her life. Now keep in mind, Boogie explicitly, in this very statement that she is criticizing, says that he is pro-gay marriage. Boogie actually has done pro-gay marriage activism in the past. He is not anti-gay marriage by any stretch of the imagination. But this girl has decided to blow up about this nonetheless, and there are much, much more abrasive and negative tweets even from other people, more outrageous responses. The difference being that these are people with no notoriety whatsoever, and I don't feel like contributing to giving it to them. This girl's tweets pretty clearly outline to me that she either never watched the original clip and only heard about it third or fourth hand, or she started to listen to what he said, and as soon as he said something that she disagreed with, she decided to just fly off the handle, and all logic and reason and intelligence just flew from her body, making her appear, at least through the eyes of anybody who is not going to get violently outraged at something like another person's opinion, to be an idiot, rather than sit down and try and find the reason for the differences in opinion with Boogie or somebody who believes like him. Opinion differences that, by the way, are minor. They still believe in the same thing at the end of the day. There's simply a difference in how they believe that that end goal should be reached. But no, instead of sitting down and trying to have a civil discourse or discussion like that, she instantaneously reacts in the most extreme way that I think she could possibly think of. That's why I want to talk about this TEDx talk that I also watched tonight. This TEDx talk was given by a man named Daryl Davis, who is a black jazz singer, probably older middle-aged man in his late 50s, maybe early 60s. A man who grew up, black in America at a point in time when that was not a good thing to be. A man who tells his own personal story at the beginning of this TEDx talk about having things thrown at him by adult spectators as he marched in a Boy Scout parade as a child. And a man who, after that event, made it his personal goal to find out, to understand how it is that, in his own words, somebody could hate him without ever knowing him. Now, this led Mr. Kelley to interview a man by the name of This led Mr. Davis to interview a man by the name of Roger Kelley. And Roger Kelley was at the time the Imperial Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, which, by my understanding and how Mr. Davis says it, is like the leader of the whole Ku Klux Klan in the entire country. And over years of conversation and learning from each other and sitting down and learning what each other's opinions is. And he stresses many times in the video, not agreeing with what Mr. Kelley's opinions are, but rather just learning what they are in his own personal quest to find out how it is that people come to have these opinions. They, over years, ended up building a rapport and then a friendship of sorts that led Mr. Davis to, in fact, attend Ku Klux Klan rallies with Mr. Kelley, and led Mr. Kelley and his Klan brethren to attend the concerts of Mr. Davis. These conversations, this friendship, eventually led Mr. Kelley to say at a Klan rally, which you see a clip of him saying these exact words at this Klan rally towards the end of the TEDx talk, that he in fact respects Mr. Davis despite the fact that he is black, and despite the fact that Mr. Kelley is not just a member of, but the leader of the Ku Klux Klan, and that he respects him because Mr. Davis was willing to sit down and listen to his opinions and why he held them, and to share his own opinions back with Mr. Kelley. And the overall end result is apparently that Mr. Kelley left the Ku Klux Klan, and that his personal Imperial Wizard's robes are now a prop, an item being used by Mr. Davis in said TEDx talk. That's right. This Daryl Davis, an ordinary jazz singer, or blues singer, whatever you want to call his style of music, they have a clip of it in the TEDx talk as well, a man who the entire time was, in fact, black, very obviously, was able to convince the leader of the entire Ku Klux Klan, somebody who has had this hatred ingrained in him his entire lifetime, to change his mind. And he did so by being respectful and having a dialogue, a conversation. Now, I want to point something out to other people who may oppose white supremacy or the Ku Klux Klan, especially people who would be categorized as social justice warriors nowadays. Not only would no meeting between somebody like you and somebody like Roger Kelley ever end in that person changing their opinions in any way, shape, or form, it would almost inevitably end in violence, and probably in somebody's death. And this, by the way, goes for people on both sides of the political spectrum. I simply draw the comparison to the left because it's a little bit more of a one-to-one comparison. But like Mr. Davis in his TEDx talk, I would like to use Charlottesville as an example. Your attempt at ending white supremacy at Charlottesville led to somebody dying, and countless other attempts that you have had at ending white supremacy have led to horrible, terrible city-spanning riots and acts of violence. And the main difference, the only difference, is respect and conversation. And I want to end this with kind of a paraphrasing of Mr. Davis's own closing statements from his TEDx talk. That's why I said the whole like and comment and subscribe thing earlier. Respect is the key. Sit down and talk to your enemies. Learn something from them. Let them learn something from you. When two enemies aren't fighting, or when two enemies are talking, they aren't fighting. It's when talking ceases that the ground becomes fertile for violence. And that closing statement, I think, is really important and really impactful. I mean, it made an impact on me, and I hope that if you guys go and watch that TEDx talk, it'll make an impact on you too. Have a great night. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.